The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Breaking humanity, one soul at a time. This is the World You Don't Know radio show with your host, Nick O'Connell.
Now, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're very welcome along to this week's edition of The World You Don't Know with myself, Mick O'Connell. I wasn't here last week. I was over in the UK, so I think there was an emergency show put out last week, so you wouldn't have heard me on the airwaves last week at all. But I do have a guest on for tonight. Incidentally, it was actually somebody who phoned the station, I think a couple of weeks ago now, after hearing me on another radio show on Open Your Mind Radio with Alan and Steve. And this guy that I have coming on now, he's actually a Dublin-born guy, but he lives over in Canada, and he's an avid researcher of everything that's going on globally, I suppose, and he's also an accomplished musician as well, and so he is one of our own, so to speak. So without further ado, I'm going to go to him because he is online. As I said, he's an Irish musician living over in Canada, and he's an avid researcher. Now, I haven't spoke to this guy at all yet, but he's a wealth of information. He was sending me a lot of stuff on YouTube or on Gmail today, some YouTube links and stuff like that to some of his songs, and he's a bit Bob Dylan-esque, that type of stuff, you know. It's nice mellow music, but he's also an avid researcher, a bit like myself, into everything that's going on around the world. So without further ado, I'm going to go to him. Good evening, James.
Good evening, good evening.
Mick. You can call me
Is
Mick.
It Mike or Mick?
Mick, everyone calls me Mick.
Okay, cool.
So that'll do me fine. So listen, you're very welcome on to the show. Now, as I was saying to the listeners there, you contacted the station saying you would be interested in coming on to do a show, so here we are. Do you want to give me a little bit of background about yourself? Now, I do know you're from the little fishing village up near the canal, Ballyfermot. Is that true?
Yeah.
Right.
I was born in Ballyfermot in 1940. Well, I was born actually in the Coombe.
Right.
In 1948.
And you moved to Canada then, did you?
No, I grew up in Ballyfermot.
Right.
And I moved over here when I was 20.
Okay. And you've been there ever since, have you?
Pretty well. Except I did go back for 5 years to Ireland, and I lived on an acre of land on the border of Clare and Galway. I had enough of Canada after 8 years. So in 1976, I went back and I got an acre of land, and I tried to be a farmer.
And it didn't work out, no?
But I wasn't that good at it.
Right.
I didn't have those kind of skills.
I think the closest Ballyfermot people would get to a farm is the horse that they owned.
Yeah, well,
you know,
actually,
Ballyfermot is synonymous with horses even to this day, you know.
Yeah, when I was growing up there, I was on Landon Road, just beside Kylemore Road, so
right.
I used to go over into the fields where the Tinkers camped when I was a real small kid,
right,
like 6, 7 years old, and I used to see them with their horses and carts and campfires and watch them rounding up horses.
Right,
you know?
and you're also an accomplished musician, is that correct?
I'm a musician, yeah.
And it's mostly folk music you do. I had to listen to some of your stuff today now. I quite like it. It's quite mellow and nice.
Yeah, I do more than folk music.
Right.
I started with folk music.
Right, but it's very good. Now, to get on to the more serious side of things, you got in touch with me.
Music is very serious.
Well, I know it is. It depends on what you're listening to, I suppose. But moving on to the political side of things, I suppose, for want of a better word, you've basically gone down the rabbit hole yourself, and you've done a lot of deep research into what's really going on in this world. Is that correct?
Yeah, the last 5 years, I spent a lot of time on the internet.
Right,
and before that, I have to say that I didn't. You know, I was just sort of winging it through life and enjoying myself, of course, but never really knowing what was going on all around.
So you were just like most people, just going along to get along.
I was going along, to get along and live life, and for the most part, it was good, you know. But once I retired and I got him. I started listening to John Lash. Actually, he used to have this program where he would talk online for several hours, during this experiment that he was carrying on, and that was really got me started into looking into political stuff.
Right. And I think, like most people, would 9/11, would that have been a trigger for you to start questioning what's actually going on in the world?
No, I didn't actually. I was living in Regina on the prairies that time, and I distinctly remember standing in the living room looking at this television show about what was going on, and then I think I just went about my business, and it never struck. I was never interested in what had happened there.
Did you think there was anything fishy going on though when you seen it, or did you just, recoil in horror like most people?
When I saw the screen, when I saw what was going on the screen, I basically kind of raised my eyebrows,
And did you think there was something fishy going on, or did you just accept what the mainstream media were telling you?
Well, I I didn't really listen to the mainstream media very much in my life. I just happened to be in a house where when it was happening, and the television was on, so I saw it, and I can't really remember anything else about it until, like I said, about 5 years ago, I did start to dig into all that stuff.
So what prompted you to start digging into things?
John Lash, actually, to put it sort of bluntly.
No, I've heard of that guy's name. Tell me a little bit about him.
Well, he's an astronomer. He looks at the stars, he watches the stars, and he's been doing that for all his life, and he's about 70 now, and he lives in Spain, and he's very much into the planet, the Earth,
Right.
He communicates with the Earth, basically, and he's been reading the stars and seeing what's coming down. For example, like just to cut to the chase for a minute here, I remember him talking about the fact that like he would give these 1 hour or 2 hour talks on. They're still online. You can still listen to them. And he was talking about how the planet, the Mother Earth, was going to deal with the situation as it's unfolding at the moment. And he was talking about how cold it was going to get and how many people would die from the cold. And he was saying that it's a much nicer way to die than, we'll say, being burned alive or drowned alive. To actually die from the cold is apparently not so bad, if you know what I mean.
Right. Well, not as severe as I suppose being burned alive, but...
Well, no, yeah, but like freezing to death is apparently a nicer way to go than many other ways.
I must bear that in mind.
Yeah, it reminds me. A couple of years ago, I did a course online with a fellow called Wim Hof. I think he's out of Amsterdam or that area in Europe, and he's a guy who trains people to withstand the cold. So you could do this course online, and part of it was exercises and breathing exercises, etc. And then after that, you would go into the shower and have a cold shower, and then a warm shower, and then a cold shower. Finalize it with a cold shower, so that your body got accustomed to the cold.
I suppose if you were going on any polar expeditions, that would be something that was probably wise to do. To acclimatise yourself.
Yes, if you were planning on climbing, mountains in the cold, it would be an excellent thing to prepare yourself for. But looking back now, I think it's a good thing to get used to the cold nowadays.
Well,
somehow.
So if you're looking at him and he's talking about stuff like that, do you believe in global warming, or do you think it's a myth?
Well, I don't like to believe in anything, you know. I like to either know something or not know it.
Yeah.
And I do know, because I have been in this particular place for the last 5 years. I moved into this place on Vancouver Island 5 years ago in October. And so I have been able to notice the change in the weather because I'm in the same place, right? Because most of my life I moved around a lot, you know. So I've noticed it's getting cold. So I know that, I know where I am, that the weather is getting cooler.
It's not
colder.
warming up. I mean, there's a lot of people around the world. I mean, even Donald Trump came out. Now, he hasn't said it since he became president, but prior to him becoming president, he was interviewed many times where he says it's his belief that global warming is a hoax, that it's just another form of control on people and stuff like that.
For sure. I mean, if you research it, you'll find out pretty quickly, that it is a hoax. And the guy I just found recently was John Casey, who was about 70 years old, maybe a little older, and he's an American, worked for NASA, worked as a consultant to the White House, and now works with scientists in Russia and Japan, Australia, England, as a separate group to the global warmists, as they're called. And he and his cohorts have been down, grading this global warming for years. And John Casey is the one for your listeners to search and start listening to his interviews about what's happening with the weather. And you'll find out that the sun goes through these different cycles, but there's a particular cycle called it's a 206-year cycle. And apparently it's just gone out of the last one. I'm not exactly sure what year it was, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. And then it started to cool, so the weather started to cool off. And I can attest to that. For the last 5 years, I've noticed it.
Well,
so
I mean, I live here in Ireland, and you as a Dublin man will know. One thing we're fixated on in this country is the weather, because of the lack of good weather that we get. Now, since this, I mean, when I was growing up, it was the ozone layer was the problem. I think they fixed that hole now. Someone has sewn that up now, and because we've done away with hairspray, but they don't talk about it anymore. Then now it's global warming, and if the planet is warming up, it certainly is not shown that here in Ireland, because we're getting crap summer after crap summer. Now, this summer, it's been raining for the last couple of weeks on and off. We've had a few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks of half decent weather, but not scorching hot weather where you could plan to go on a holiday knowing it's not going to rain and stuff. So, I mean, that for me, I think global warming is a myth. I think it's just and this is my own personal opinion, folks. You're free to believe whatever you want to believe. But when I see the likes of Al Gore coming on, doing the level best to convince you that, global warming is a reality, and then, you look at the kind of weather we're having around the world a few years later, it just doesn't add up to what he was saying we should expect coming down the line since that movie was made.
Yeah, there's various YouTube videos debunking Al Gore now, so it's very easy to find out what's going on about the weather.
Well, what do you think is going on? Your own opinion. I mean, we have to. I don't know if you believe in the chemtrailing agenda, but I mean, I know the skies look a hell of a lot different than what they were when I was growing up.
Oh yeah, no, the chemtrails is happening, and
what do you think the purpose is behind them? Do you think it's to mess with the atmosphere? Do you think it's something to do with a depopulation agenda?
There's different layers to it, but one of them is, yes, part of it is to, as I have read, is partly it's to cut the population down. Also, supposedly there's smart dust in the chemtrails, which when we all breathe it in, this particular type of dust then destroys certain parts of the nerve endings, which, because the body will heal itself, it will repair the nerve endings, but will repair them with the smart dust as a kind of a node or a nodule on the nerve ends. But these particular pieces of smart dust are actually, you could call them microchips, which can be, you can send signal. People who are controlling all this can send signals to those microorganisms in your body. Well, they're not actually organisms, but microchips, we'll call them, in your body. And for example, because they have figured out what the vibrational frequency is of, we'll just say, anger or lust or
they can
whatever.
invoke those kind of emotions in you at the flick of a switch. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Right. I mean, David Icke has spoken of this. I've read all of his books. I've watched a lot of his, his online documentaries and speeches and stuff like that he's given. And he talks about smart dust being used to control populations and to make people think differently and stuff like that. And some people say, lad, that's just, it's fantasy. But, I think like 50 years ago, we know that they had technology that, built into the telephone systems in America, that if you said the words bomb and president in the same sentence, the phone call would automatically be recorded. And that's 50 and 60 years ago. You can only imagine what they've got now.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, though, the thing that we have to remember is that you don't need to feel that you can be controlled by all this stuff necessarily. So, you can raise your level of consciousness, we'll say, to be able to negate that, any influences like that.
Right.
So that's an really important thing to remember. And for me, anyway, that's how I look at things. Consciousness itself, right, is something that we all need to work on, like becoming more, and like, the old saying, be here now.
Yeah.
Do you know that saying? Well, what about the one that says, be more here now? So I think that's one of the keys to surviving as a human being on this planet. It's probably the key, especially with what's coming down. So, anyway.
Well, I've spoken to many people on my show, and a lot of them, we talk about consciousness quite a lot because it's a subject that comes up quite often on the show. And like my good friend in Wexford, for example, Trevor Evers, he's a guy whose consciousness I would see as rising, because this is a guy who 2 years ago, 3 years ago only discovered all of this stuff, much like yourself, and already has put on an event that has had some fine speakers attend from around the world at this event, and like I'm at this 15 years now, nearly 20 years, looking into all of this sort of stuff. And I can remember back in the early days, I'd be telling people stuff that I think is going on, that I think that might be coming down the line. And like, I lost a lot of friends. People say, you're mad, you're nuts, there's something wrong with you, where's your tinfoil hat? But most of what I was talking about years ago has come to fruition now. It has happened. But one thing I have noticed is all those people years ago that would have said, you're mad, you're crazy looking into all of this stuff, they're at it now. They're looking at this stuff. They're looking at the media now. They're looking at the news. They're seeing the attacks in Barcelona, and then they're going onto YouTube, and there's videos up there within 10 minutes exposing it for what it was. Mm-hmm. So I think consciousness is rising. But I think all this crap that's going on around the world, by the New World Order, if you want to call them that, is a mad effort to suppress this rise in consciousness. But I don't think they can suppress it. I don't think there's anything they can do to stop it.
No, consciousness itself is, I think the term, I don't like to use the term consciousness is rising. Consciousness just is.
Yeah.
It's just that people are becoming more conscious.
Yeah. But listen, can you
People
hold
are.
on for just a couple of minutes? 'Cause I need to go to an ad break. I was supposed to go to a break 3 or 4 minutes ago. So I'm just going to go to a 2-minute break and I'll be back with you in a couple of minutes, James.
Oh.
So if you just hold the line, I'll be back in 2 minutes. Talk to you very shortly, folks.
Broadcasting to Lucan, this is Liffey Sound, 96.4 FM.
The wonderful Lucan Festival takes place from the 6th to the 10th of September. Some of the highlights this year include a fireworks display at the Liffey Weir at 8 p.m. on Friday the 8th. Liffey Sound 96.4 FM will provide the music on the night. On Saturday the 9th, enjoy a walk in the grounds of Lucan House and witness the Defence Forces parachute into the grounds, or pop into Kenny's Back Lounge to see South Dublin Model Railway Club display. Sunday the 10th is Family Fun Day. Activities will commence at 2 p.m. These include the Garda Station Open Day with the Garda Band, rafting over the Weir, lots of live entertainment from local singers and dancers, and an outside broadcast from Liffey Sound 96.4 FM, Lucan's community radio station. Check out the Lucan Festival Facebook page for details on all events.
Hello listeners, Brendan Quinn here reminding you that Friday's Lucan Beat, packed with local and national news, upcoming events, flavoured with inspirational topics, is aired each Friday between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m.
I've always provided. That's what I do. Even when the job shut down, I somehow managed. But the pressure chips away at your confidence. I felt alone. I needed to talk things out. I learned Samaritans isn't just for when you hit rock bottom. I'm so glad I called.
It's always worth getting problems big and not so big off your chest. Call Samaritans. No pressure, no judgment. We're here for you. Anytime, talk to us. Free call 116 113 or go to samaritans.ie.
You're listening to Liffey Sound on 96.4 FM.
Now, folks, you're very welcome back. Just before I go back to James, just a couple of things I just want to mention. The phone number for the studio is 08706271138 if you want to send a text message. I think it'll come through, I'm not sure. The Facebook page for the show is The Words You Don't Know on Facebook. Go on there and like the page. Now, I just want to make a correction. I had a show a couple of weeks ago. I had a Mr. Thomas McGrath on. He's written a book called The Sovereign Republic of Ireland, and we mentioned the book launch, which is taking place on the 30th of this month. I think it's a Wednesday, in the Writers' Club in Parnell Square. Now, I did say the Teachers' Club in Parnell Square, so I just want to correct that. It's in the Writers' Club. For more information on that, you can go on to the Sovereign Republic of Ireland Facebook page or billymcguire.com. There's more information there. Or if you go on to Eventbrite, the ticketing agency, and just type in Sovereign Republic of Ireland book launch, you will find more information there and you'll be able to obtain tickets. It's a free event. There will be sandwiches and maybe wine and stuff like that afterwards, so it'll be well worth going. Plus you can get a signed copy of Thomas McGrath's book, The Sovereign Republic of Ireland, and it's quite adept actually, because in the book he names who he thinks is the real killer of Michael Collins, whose anniversary it was yesterday, incidentally. So it's a very interesting book. I've read it. It's a very eye-opening book, so I'd urge you to go and read it. Anyway, I'm going to go back to James, and we'll see where we go from here. James, you're still with me, yeah?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
That's grand.
I just want to talking about books, I just ordered a book by John Casey called Upheaval.
Right.
And $40 American or Canadian, right? So it's the latest one he wrote, and apparently when the cold periods set in, these mini ice ages, as he refers to them as little ice ages, they're always accompanied by a lot of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions around the planet. So that's one thing, a book that I'm going to read when I get it. And then I just want to mention this. There's a lady called, I think she's dead now, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She was into death and dying, and she talks about the stages of grief, right? Because if you think about what's coming down the pike for humanity, not just you and me and those of us who are listening, but everybody really on the planet. And how good we've had it, apart from all the crap that's been going on with this planet. Is a beautiful place to be. So, but when we hear about things like what's happening. Well, just say it's a fact that the Earth is going to get cold, and it's going to be hard to grow crops around the world. Like crops are going to fail. A lot of people are going to not be able to go to the store and get what they think they can get or have been used to getting. Most people live in cities now, and over 50% of the world's populations live in cities.
Open air prisons.
Now, in the last mini ice age, I think was in the 1800s, like in America, I just was listening to this morning. There's a YouTube channel on there. There's a young guy who's quite brilliant actually, and he has a YouTube channel called Ice Age Farmer, and it's brilliant. So he was saying that he was reading history books. So what happened in years gone by, and the hailstones were the size of soccer balls. If you can imagine this, right? So and then he was talking about during the 100 Years' War, that was in the 1360s, sorry, when I think it was Edward, one of these English kings, maybe went over to France, and he wanted to go to war with France, and the French wouldn't entertain it. They got behind their walls or whatever, but he just went around the whole countryside pillaging. But during that time, there was a hailstorm, and the hail was so big that this would have been in a solar minimum. That's what it's called, a grand solar minimum. In these periods, 1,000 of his men were killed. The horses bolted, and the soldiers were basically wiped out by the hailstorm. You know what I mean?
And do you think we're facing something like that in the near future?
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying that this is what these scientists who are not into global warming, but they're into global cooling, are saying that this is what's happened in the past. So, history does tend to repeat itself.
Yeah.
And it's better to be prepared. So at least, but the other thing is, when you're going around talking to people about this, one of the things about this, because it is a grievous thing to think, okay, it's not going to be like the way it has been. So the first thing is that people go into denial, which is either consciously or unconsciously. They refuse to accept
that it's going to happen.
Well, facts that they're being told, or information, or some reality that's around. They don't, somebody I lived with for 50 years just died. My wife just died, or my husband just died, and that's the reality, right? The man or the woman just died, but they don't accept it. Deny it for a while. That's the first stage of grief.
Of grief, yeah.
The second stage is anger. So if you want to, project that into, let's say, what might happen in the city of Dublin, for example, if things get rough, there would be a lot of anger on the street. Then the next stage is bargaining.
But can you explain that a bit better?
Well, we'll say in this case, I was thinking about this today, this morning. How would that apply in this, situation that we're talking about? What would we be bargaining about?
Are you talking about people bargaining with each other, if the proverbial shit hit the fan? There's a run on the shops, there's a run on banks, and there's just general chaos.
Yeah, I haven't really thought in depth about it. This is about death and dying, the bargaining. What would the person, after they get over the anger that something happened, then they would start to bargain about, in some way. And then the next stage is depression. And then the next stage is acceptance.
Yeah.
So those are the five.
That's something I can identify with. I lost both my own parents as well. And it was at a pretty rough time in my life, and I didn't have a chance to grieve, but I eventually did, you know what I mean? And, there's the anger because, there's loads of things you wanted to say and you never got the chance to, and then, I see what you're saying there, then there's the bargaining. I think the bargaining is with yourself, I suppose,
Yeah, maybe. I haven't really clued into what that is about, really. But then I can see how you would get depressed. Like, for example, a couple of days ago, I was really depressed, and because I've been studying it, I only started looking into this for the last couple of weeks, and really hit me, and I was really feeling bad. But today, I feel okay, because I've gone through that depression stage.
Yeah, I think
And
if you can identify depression for what it is, you can. I think it's a lot easier to get through it if you can, rather than sitting there feeling down and not knowing why. If you know why you're feeling down, because
I knew why I was depressed. I absolutely knew.
I think that's half the battle. Once you can identify why you're depressed, it's easier to move past that.
Now, okay, so the thing is, I would like to get off this. My main purpose in coming on the radios with you was to actually just get the word out, because I'm a natural born networker.
Right.
Actually, apart from being a musician, I do have this ability ability is kind of a natural talent of mine to pass stuff around. So I did want to mention this thing about John Casey, the Ice Age farmer, and people have to do their own research, And then the other thing is, the other really good website I found was on YouTube was Adapt 2030, and that's another young guy who's quite brilliant in another way. And I would recommend anybody who is interested, who's not denying this is happening, should check out John Casey, Adapt 2030, and the Ice Age Farmer, and that's all you really need if you're interested. See?
Now in the email I got from my station manager saying that you wanted to get in touch and stuff like that and do a show.
Yeah,
she did mention you wanted to talk about water in relation to what? Because when she said water, I was thinking, is it water charges or is it water in general, like the properties of water, or what is it you wanted to talk about?
I've listened to you. I think it was you maybe, and Alan James.
Yeah, on OIM.
Talking about water, and I've heard a few other programs coming out of Ireland about water, and I realised that because in America, they seem to be a little bit ahead, about different things, you could say, maybe. And I started looking into my own water about 2 years ago, right? Because I moved into this place, and maybe it was longer because I've been here 5 years. So I don't trust the water, because I know water is not that great all around the world. So I bought a distiller, and I distilled my water, and I saw green slime at the bottom of the distiller each time I distilled a gallon of water. So then I drank that for a while. Then I started buying reverse osmosis water. Then I discovered that that's not good for you either, because it's acidic and there's no minerals or trace elements left in it, because it takes everything out, basically.
Yeah, something that's been going on in this country now. There's a group here called We the People, and they're a sovereign group, but what they've been doing is they've been going around the country reinstituting old wells and getting them working again. There's one up in County Meeting, Mornington. My good friend Paul Cotty and some of his colleagues, I think, and Ray Hall, they done a bit of work on it, and it's a public water well, with a pump, and it wasn't working. It probably lying derelict since the 1950s, and these are dotted all around the country. So I urge people, if there's a well somewhere near you, get a few people together and fix it. They're not that hard to fix, I believe, and it's pure natural water coming from the ground.
Yeah, okay. Now, but the thing about water is this. There's various things about water that are key to know. One is that it coming out of taps, we'll just start there. Coming out of taps in cities, it's dead. It's biologically not alive.
The water,
Let's put it that way. It's dead. So it needs to be alive to do any good for you. That's number one. And also in most cities in the world, it's recycled 30 times before it gets back into the normal hydrological cycle, which is, evaporation up into the clouds, comes back down again into the water, into the lakes and into the streams, and then eventually reaches you in your house. Okay? Well, it's recycled in most cities in the world 30 times before that happens to it each time. Anyway, that's number one. It's dead coming out of the tap. Number two is that you can bring it back to life by, there's different terms used. I like to use the word revitalizing, which means, bringing it back to life. And that's done by vortexing it. And your subscribers, listeners will have to look into this. But basically what that means is, how you do that technically is you buy a device. Either you can put it on your tap, or you can put it into the mains in your house if you own your own house, or you can get one that's portable and you can hold it under the tap and run the water through it, and it will vortex it going through. And then when it comes out, when it's been vortexed, it's been that action actually brings water back to life. And this is like scientifically proven. This is not just...
Well, it's funny you should mention that. Now, I seen a documentary many years ago about some Japanese scientists who were doing experiments with water. And what they were doing was they had two separate glasses of water. And one glass of water, they would be extremely negative towards that water. They'd post negative things about it. And the other one then would be all loving and positive. And then they put the samples of the water that was been, having negativity geared towards it. They put a sample under the microscope and looked at its crystalline structure, and it was completely collapsed. And then they looked at the crystalline structure of the nice water, if you want to call it that, the positive water. And its structure was like snowflakes. It was, geometrically beautiful. So, and what they were saying in this is, as you just said, that water is life. It really is the essence of life. And like you said, the water that we're getting in the taps is like the water that has been given the negative treatment. It's junk. And we're ingesting that water then. We're not only drinking it, we're showering in it as well. We're washing in it, we're washing our food in it, washing our vegetables in it and stuff like that. We're consuming quite a lot of it,
Yeah, okay. So the way to deal with all that is... first of all, you have to realize that, yes, like you said, water is conscious because it's part of the planet.
It's part of the cosmos,
The planet is conscious. It's a living organism. It's our mother, actually. We're just pop-ups from this planet.
Do you think everything on this planet, us, animals, stones, bricks, the sand on the beach, do you think consciousness permeates everything?
Yes.
Like the whole universe as a whole?
Yes.
It's like Bill Hicks says it, the whole universe is just one consciousness having a subjective experience.
It is.
I believe it. I mean, it makes sense to me to think of it that way anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's better if you get to know it, because most people, they believe in God and they believe in Jesus and all this stuff, and they believe that they're going to go to heaven. Nobody actually has ever come back from heaven to tell you where it is and what it's like.
True.
You know what I'm saying? So, going around believing things is not a good idea. So, once you get a sense of how everything is conscious, then it starts to expand, and eventually, I suppose, I haven't experienced this myself, but I haven't experienced that sense of being one with everything. And I don't mean me looking at everything and seeing everything as one, but becoming one with everything, which is how I kind of understand what that.
I think anybody that's interested in consciousness wants to experience that moment, don't they?
Yeah,
where they get it.
Yeah, so even if it only happens for a moment, then you don't believe it anymore. You've actually experienced it.
I had a strange experience like that myself, and I'll get to it after the break. I need to go to one more break, so do you mind holding on for a couple of minutes, James?
Okay,
that'd be brilliant. Folks, we'll be back in 2 minutes with James. Talk to you very shortly.
Listening to Liffey Sound, www.liffeysoundfm.ie. Listen online, community radio at its best.
Thinking it over before I commit myself.
It's the end of August. September is with us, and the new academic year opens in our schools and colleges. Now, if the choosing of subjects and entry to our third-level institutions is important to you, listen to Career Choices, Schools and Colleges, with me, Martin Downs, and Dr. John McGinnity of Maynooth University, here on Liffey Sound FM at 9 p.m. on Wednesday the 30th of August. That's Career Choices, Schools and Colleges, here on Liffey Sound FM at 9 p.m. on Wednesday the 30th of August.
Thinking it over.
Have you taken our advice and explored the many attractions in our lovely Liffey Valley? There's so much to enjoy in the Liffey Valley. Lovely parks, riverside walks, historic houses, water sports, children's play areas and much, much more. The Liffey Valley Park Alliance continues its work for the preservation of this marvellous amenity and its picturesque landscapes. You can play your part by using its various facilities. If you have not already done so, start now. You won't regret it.
Danger, danger! If sore necks, ringing in your ears and mosh pits are your thing, check out High Voltage with me, Dave Darcy, for all things rock, metal and punk. Every Monday evening from 7 to 9 on Liffey Sound 96.4 FM.
Danger, danger! High voltage! Bring the tellers, and win we cheers.
Local programmes, local presenters, local news. Tune to Liffey Sound 96.4 FM.
Now, folks, you're very welcome back. James, you're still with me, yeah?
Yeah, I am.
That's
yeah.
grand. Listen, we've got about 10 or 11 minutes left.
Yeah, okay, well, let's stick to this. I'd just like to get through this water business
Yeah,
first.
do, yeah, please.
So let me give you the rest of what I know about what people can do. First of all, I'll just go a little bit more about water. Water has memory, so it actually remembers all the crap that's happened to it around it. If you have a glass of water in front of you and you have an argument with your wife, for example, then you drink that water, you're just drinking the energy and the vibration of all that anger that went into the water. It picks it up.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be doing that. So the next thing is, this is important. Water clusters in molecules. And nowadays, because of all the pollution, we'll say, it's known that water is clustering now around 10, 20, 30 molecules per cluster. Now, our cells have what's known as an aquaporin channel, and it only allows one molecule in at a time. So people are going around drinking water all day, trying to stay hydrated, and they're not actually doing the job as easily as they could, because their body has to spend a lot of energy every day breaking the water down just to get hydrated at the cellular level.
Right.
So,
and we are made of water. I mean, any scientist will tell you that.
Yeah, 75% water. But the thing is, when you vortex water, it microclusters it down to 4 or 5 or 6 molecules per cluster. So when you drink vortexed water, you get instantly hydrated. If you grow your plants with vortexed water, the plants also have cells and they uptake the vortexed water.
And how do you go about vortexing your water?
Well, the easiest way to do it is to buy these things from, and I'll tell you the names of 4 places that I know of that sell these things, okay? One of them is Alive Water, which is in North Vancouver, just across the water from me, alivewater.com. There's another one down in Arizona called Natural Action Technologies, naturalactiontechnologies.com. There's one in Europe called Grander.com, Grander, Grander.com. That's the only one I haven't had any personal experience with.
And what can they supply you with? Is it a device, is it, that you put your water through?
Yeah. You can go online and check them out.
Right. And would you be adding minerals to the water using this device as well? Like, would you mix stuff with it? Or?
Well, it doesn't do any harm to add minerals to water, if you know what you're doing. I'm not that well up on that aspect of it. I don't add minerals to my water, let's put it that way. But eventually I might. But the thing is, just sticking to these devices. Next one is in Austria. Well, Grander is actually an Austrian company, Grander.com, and UMH.at, which is Austria. These people in Austria make what I consider to be the Rolls-Royce of water structuring devices. It's either called water structuring or water revitalizing. Now, UMH.AT also make devices for harmonizing electromagnetic frequency, which bothers me quite a bit actually. Being near cell phone towers or cell phones or whatever. So I've been looking into that a lot. Now I'll give your listeners two videos to go on, so if they take the time to look at these videos, then they will know enough about it to either do something about it or not. One of them is called a man called Barry Trower. Actually, I think
Alan and Steve have had Barry on their show.
Yeah, he was on there.
That's
People
right.
should go back and listen to Barry Trower, and the YouTube video is called The Dangers of Microwave Technology.
Yeah, I had a guy on my show now about 3 years ago, a gentleman called John Weagle. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he was talking about similar things. He was talking about the dangers of cell towers and stuff like that, particularly near schools and whatnot.
People need to listen to Barry Trower. And then there's another one I discovered recently. It's a German doctor. He operates in Germany and in America, on the east coast of America. His name is Dietrich Klinghardt, Klinghardt, Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, and he has an academy there. Anybody types in his name, there's one video on his front page of his website, and it's about smart meters. Now, I don't want to go into smart meters, start talking about them. We all know what they're doing. But if you watch that video and Barry Trower's video, The Dangers of Microwave, you'll know enough. And I'm telling you that I have found from my research that the UMH.AT company in Austria seem to have what I consider to be the better devices for protecting yourself against electromagnetic frequency. Now, there's one other company that I discovered about a month ago, and they're in Nelson, BC, up on the mountains in Nelson, a town called Nelson, and it's called FLFE.net, which stands for Focused Life Force Energy.net, FLFE.net. And they have machines which are along the lines of Tesla, as I understand. So what they're doing is they're sending out waves of energy to property. We'll say Alan's farm, for example, where he lives. He could have a beam of energy sent to his legal address, either the legal address or the latitude and longitude line, and they actually entangle a wave. They call it a high consciousness wave. So fine. They entangle this wave with your property, or if you want to have it on a mobile, we'll say you give them your mobile phone number and your country. You just go online and you can do this free trial for 15 days.
And what will it do?
And what it does, on the phone, it actually harmonizes the EMF. But it's not just that. What it does is it encloses you in a bubble of high frequency, call it a bubble of consciousness, you know what I mean? Because apparently, like, you can measure consciousness. There's people who have devised maps of consciousness. One of them is a Dr. David Hawkins, which I don't know anything about. I just went on YouTube and watched for a few minutes of him talking. But apparently he was a famous English professor, and he devised a map of consciousness. So you can measure consciousness. So what this wave is, it raises the consciousness of your property. And if you're living in a house, we'll say, which might have had trauma happened in it, murder happened in it, ghosts still stuck there, whatever, it'll change the consciousness it'll raise the consciousness of the building you're living in.
Do you think if there's a building, say, where, a massacre occurred or something like that,
Yes.
say in the Second World War, do you think that building would still have a negative energy if it has never been taken over?
Of course, yeah. It's like they talk about, battlefields. So you go up to the battlefield there in Ireland, the Battle of the Boyne or the Battle of wherever. I wasn't really up on history in my day. When I was young, I hated history, actually. But now I like it, because I realize, it's important to know what went on. And if you go onto a battlefield in Ireland, I don't know the names of them, but I know there's one on the way from Dublin to Athlone, through Athlone.
Well, the one up in Boyne, isn't it? The Battle of the Boyne would be a famous one.
Yeah. Anyway, you know where there was a lot of blood and gore. You walk on there, if you're really sensitive, you'll pick up the energy of the trauma that happened there, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I believe you, because everything is energy. I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah. So your house, your buildings, or even all the arguments you've had with your wife over the last 20 years, it's stuck in the walls, So you can clear that out with this kind of high frequency. So anyway, the name of that company is flfe.net. People could go on there and they can try it, for free for 15 days. And if they're sensitive at all, maybe they'll notice. And they have to start drinking lots of water, because when you start to detox your buildings and yourself, you need to be drinking a lot of good water. So I don't know if I finished about water. I didn't, actually. And this is the most important thing. Like water, I think, is somewhere where we can start. As for starting farming for the Ice Age, that's a little bit further down the road. But I think you need to start with the water first.
Well, as I'm sure you know, we have a bit of a love affair with our water here in this country now, because they're trying to charge us for it, and a lot of people are out protesting, and rightly so. But one thing that struck me about the protest was there was very few people protesting about the quality of the water.
Right. Well, what they need to do is to start somehow or other. Like if you could retrofit those pumps you're talking about with one of these devices, so that when they get the water, it's alive, it's micro-clustered, and I didn't tell you this yet. When you vortex water, what happens is it changes the hydrogen bond angle in the molecule. Oxygen, the hydrogen to the oxygen.
Yeah.
It changes the hydrogen bond angle, but it also changes the hydrogen bond angle of all the toxins that are in the water. So it doesn't matter whether you're getting it from a well or from a river or whatever. If it's on this planet, it's toxic. There's no getting away from it. So the thing is, when you vortex it, it will change the hydrogen bond angle of the lead and the fluoride and the whatever that's in the water. So it may actually neutralizes, it renders it harmless, basically. So you can drink the toxic water, and because it's alive and because it's micro-clustered, having been put through a vortex unit, it will then go through your system, because that's basically what water does. It brings in nutrients and it takes out the garbage. That's all it really does. Like you don't. And by the way, the more pressure that of the water through a vortex unit, the higher the energy in the water. And we live on the energy. You see what I mean? Like that's the key point. Like you can live on a glass of water, on the energy in the water, if it's the real stuff.
Yeah. But if we're drinking crap, it's going to do nothing for us, and we'll end up dehydrating anyway.
It'll kill you.
Actually. It could certainly go a long way to explaining why our cells start dying off after 50 or 60 years, instead of replenishing themselves like they would have done in our youth.
I guarantee you and your listeners that if you start drinking vortex or revitalized water, structured water, you will begin to notice within days of how better you feel. And also, you wash all the vegetables. You take them from the store. If you spritz, say you get cheese in a store and it has something toxic in it, because it's wrapped in plastic, even makes it somewhat toxic. But when you hit that plastic wrapper, it will change the hydrogen bond angle in the plastic and in the contents of the bag, and you will neutralize all the toxins that are in whatever is in that bag. So anyway, there's a lot to learn about how you can
clean up your water.
Work with water, but you gotta get this stuff. I'll give you an example. There's a waterfall in South America, Venezuela. It's on a YouTube video, because I looked at a lot of videos on YouTube about water. They're great. There's a lot of really great videos about water there. One of them there's two scientists come from Russia, and they go trekking in 3 days. It's the only way you can get into this waterfall. And I don't know how tall it was. I don't remember what they said, but it looked like 100 feet tall. The water's crashing down in this totally, isolated area in Venezuela, and they took samples of that water back to Russia. They put it into their equipment, and they discovered that water was 40,000 times more active than, ordinary water.
Standard tap water.
40,000 times more active. So that's velocity. The velocity of that waterfall. That water was really, really energetic.
Full of energy, yeah.
See what I mean?
It's a very interesting subject. But listen, James, unfortunately, I have come to the end of the show. I've got 1 minute left. So, do you have a website or anything you can point people to?
No, I don't.
You don't?
I want to say one more thing.
Yeah, do.
Then that's it. When you start drinking revitalized water, you become more conscious.
It's this makes a lot of sense to me. It actually does. It makes an awful lot of sense.
Because you're dealing with a conscious entity. Once you start drinking a conscious living glass of water, it's going to have an effect on you.
And you feed the water properly, and it'll pay you back in kind.
And you can put your hands together and show reverence for the water. Like, I do have a website, but it's not up.
Right.
It's called reverewater.com.
Okay. Well, listen, I'll get you back on in the future, because I'm sure there's a million and one more things we could sit here talking about, and I'd talk to you all night long. You're a very interesting character, and it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for inviting me
No,
on.
you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. You got in touch with me, so I'm glad you did. And it's been an interesting show, to say the least.
Say hello to Alan for me.
I will indeed. As soon as I speak to him, I'll tell him you said hello.
Okay, cool.
And that you listen in. Well, listen, you take care and enjoy things over in Canada. And you're from Ballyfermot as well, which is a good thing. You're one of our own. So
Yeah,
listen,
where are you from?
I'm from Crumlin.
Oh, okay.
So not far from Ballyfermot. I have family in Ballyfermot. I have a niece lives up there, and what you would remember as Gallenstown. It's now called Cherry Orchard. So right up the top.
It was called Cherry Orchard when I was there.
Well, they changed the name to Gallenstown, but it's gone back to Cherry Orchard now. So
has it?
yeah,
that
they
was where
did.
The hospital was.
It's at the back of the hospital. She lives behind the Cherry Orchard Hospital. Well, listen, I'll have to let you go, and I will get you back on again sometime. So I'll be in touch. So thanks very much, James.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that was James Duggan. All the way from Canada. He's a Dublin man himself. He's from Ballyfermot. But someone who's just gone down the rabbit hole, and he just wanted to talk about water and a few other little things besides. Anyway, folks, this has been The World You Don't Know. Thanks for listening in. Remember, the phone number for the studio, if you have any comments to make about the show, is 08706271138. Or you can go onto the Facebook page, The World You Don't Know, on Facebook. And there's also a YouTube channel of the same name for podcasts. I'll be putting a podcast up with this show as well. So if you want to listen back, you can in the next couple of days. Just keep your eye on the channel. Anyway, folks, this has been The World You Don't Know. And remember, as I always say, the world is full of wonderful people. And if you can't find one, be one. Talk to us all again soon.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Breaking humanity, one soul at a time. This is the World You Don't Know radio show with your host, Nick O'Connell.